Today, we're going to teach you how to measure a curb. Here at CDI, we have an existing curb verification document, so it's in your best interest to get familiar with this. The most important thing when it comes to this document is to make sure you have the orientation correct. As you can see, we have an option A that has the supply on the right, we have an option B that has the supply on the left, and then we have an option C that has another orientation. For these, they have outer dimensions 1 and 2. Outer dimension 2 is giving you the width, and outer dimension 1 is giving you the length, so you would need to make that the longer one. From there, we can jump over to R1. This is going to be the measurement from the existing corner to where the return starts. And then R2 is going to be from that same spot to where the return ends on that side. Then we have R3, which is going to be from the existing corner to where the return starts on the other side, and R4, which is going to be how far back the return goes into the curb. As you can see here, we have a straight curb. This is usually what is roughed into the roof. These curbs are what our curb adapters sit on top of. And in order to take the proper measurements for the construction of the curb adapter, we need to understand that there is a flange on this straight curb, and this is what the curb adapter sits on top of. These flanges can be different measurements. Sometimes they're 3/4 inch, sometimes they're 1 inch. So if you oversize your curb by 3/4 of an inch each way, then it's 1.5 inches overall. If the flange is only 1 inch, we have the possibility of creating too big of a curb adapter. So it's very important that when you are measuring to get underneath and get all of the measurements from the edge of that flange, not the edge of the existing curb. Let's walk through a measurement example. First, we're going to start from the outward side, taking the flange into consideration, and see how far it is until the return starts. Then how far until it ends. Next, we have to do the same thing for the supply. Measure from the edge of the flange to the beginning of the supply, then to the end of the supply. Last, we have the depth of both the return and the supply. If any of the measurements on the edge are less than 3, just put 3. Since CDI's curb adapters always have a 3-inch overhang, it'll work just fine. The most important aspect to consider when measuring is the outward flange of the curb. If you get that measurement wrong, it could cost you another curb, an adapter, another crane, and all the labor that's involved. It's a big headache and something we definitely want to avoid. Then the final pro tip that I'm going to leave for you is that if you get out in the field and it looks like your unit is tilted a little bit, it's a good indicator that you need to check the level. The best place to level is underneath the curb adapter or on the bottom of the unit. We don't want to use the top of the unit to check the level because those areas can be weathered and warped. If your level is showing that the unit is not level, pull it downward so that the level shows it to be straight. There will be a slight gap on one side. Measure that gap and you have your pitch. When notating the pitch, just make sure you also notate how long your level is. Okay, now that we've run through all of that, we're gonna go out onto the roof with Preston and see him take all the steps we just went through.
My name's Preston. The next thing we're gonna need to do is figure out where the openings are. On this particular unit, we can get access through these 2 doors right here. So I'll just pop these off, and then we should have full access to see where our openings are. Sometimes it's easier to turn the unit off, keeps the wind from blowing in your face. Now what we need to do is look in there and find our openings. Take a little flashlight. What we're looking for is where the openings are, right? So I can see the right side of it is right here in front of me. So I'm gonna put a mark down here on the base. So now I know that my supply is going to be in between these 2 marks. I got my side to side on it. Now I need to get my depth. Because what I'm interested in is how far over from the beginning of this curb down here to the edge of the supply. I'm sitting at right about 29.5 over from the edge of this. I took my tape, I got 29.5 to the edge of that opening from the outside of this curb, but this curb sits a 1/2 inch over the roofed in curb. So I'm gonna subtract that 1/2 inch, which gets me 29 inches. So that's where my close edge is. So now I need to figure out how far that far edge is gonna be. So I know that the duct is 40 inches long and it starts 29 inches over, so I can add 40 inches to that. So we know that's the depths for our supply opening. This one's a little tricky because you have the economizer in the way. When it's on an adapter, you do have 2 options. First is if you feel like you can get the economizer out of the way and you can see where the opening is after you get it out of the way, you can measure it and we can go that route. The other route is we have our supply, we know where the divider walls are gonna be as a result of getting the measurements for the supply. We can also 24 gauge the return and say, you know, we can't get access to it. It's too much work. I don't feel comfortable taking the whole economizer off. It's just a matter of comfort level in the field, basically. Kind of open these dampers and get a look inside there. So I'm doing the same thing here for the return. Basically, I need to figure out how far away it sits from this bottom roofed-in curb. So I have this mark, and I know that the ductwork sits 16 inches across. What I could do, put my tape up there, put a mark at 16. If it's less than 3, just call it 3, because our curbs come with a standard 3x3 on the flange. So it's less than 3, I'm at like 2 inches. I'm just gonna put a 3 by it, and I'm gonna put 18 1/4. I'm gonna put 34 3/4, 54. The last thing we need to get is the return, how far this way it goes. So I know that this one starts right here. I can see it right in front of me. It's lined up right there. So now what I need to figure out is how far that way it goes from that mark. So I got my mark here, 41 from that mark there. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my tape, put it on this base here, and measure to both of these marks, and then write them down. All the measurements we're gonna need to draw this out and submit a drawing. My name's Preston. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any more questions about measuring curbs, please reach out to our customer support team and we'll be able to get you help.